Hello, everybody. In our parsha, we are told, "V'hayaki v'yacha Hashem Elokecha la'aretz asher ata bashama l'rishta." When we come into the land that we are to inherit, Eretz Yisrael, "V'natata ta bracha al har grizim ve'et haklala al har eval." So the blessings that will be recited will be on Mount Grizim, and the curses, lo aleinu, on Mount Eval. And we know from elsewhere in Torah that there were 6 tribes, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Yosef, and Binyamin, who stood atop Har Grizim to affirm the brachot, whereas Reuven, Gad, Asher, Zevulun, Dan, and Naphtali stood atop Har Eval, Yamdu al HaKlala, Bahar Eval, to affirm the curses, which were recited by Shevet Levi that stood in the valley in between the mountains down below. In the Sefer Be'er Yosef, he raises a very interesting question. Normally, when you have a small group or a single speaker who is addressing a very large crowd, you would expect in a situation of mountain and valley that the speaker or speakers would be atop the mountain so that the voice would carry well into the valley below. So how is it that the speakers, who were Shevet Levi, were down below in the valley, and those who were trying to hear them were atop Har Grizim and Har Eva? In order to understand this, we reflect back on a famous story that's recorded in Masechet Tuvot after Churban Beit HaMikdash, where we are told, Maaseh b'Reb Yochanan ben Zakkai. Shahaya rochev al chamor. Reb Yochanan ben Zakkai was riding out of Yerushalayim on a donkey, his students following after, and he sees a young woman who was down on the ground collecting barley from between the dung of the animals of the Arabs. When she saw him, she covers herself up, and she stands before Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai and pleads with him for sustenance and financial support. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai asks her, "Who are you? Who's your father?" And she says, "I'm the daughter of Naktimon ben Gurion, who was known as one of the richest men amongst Bnei Yisrael." In fact, Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, who had signed this woman's ktuva years before, witnessed that the ktuva provided for 1 million golden dinarim. He was, in fact, a wealthy tycoon. The end of the story has it that when Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai heard what had befallen the daughter of such a wealthy man, Bacha, Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, he cried, he empathized for her terrible situation. But then, strangely, he says, Ashreichem Yisrael. Fortunate are you, Am Yisrael. Bizman she'osin mitzono shel makom. When they do God's will, then nobody can rule over them. But if chas v'shalom they don't, then they become subservient to even the lowliest nation, not even the lowliest nation, to the animals of the lowliest nation, referring to her searching between the dung of the animals of the Arabs for perhaps a few grains that she could utilize. The Maharsha asks the obvious question, Ashreichem, when evil befalls them? And he says, yes, Ashreichem al shnei hatzdadim, because both of these opposite consequences, blessing if they do right, and curses if they do not so right, if they veer from the Tzivuyei Hashem, both of them are signs of their being supervised directly by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Other nations, says the Maharsha, have sarim, celestial officers, and mazalot that determine what their fate is to be. Am Yisrael always controls its own fate and, in fact, has no mazal. They are simply God's portion, Chelek Hashem. And this is evident by the tremendous reward they get when they do right. And it's also equally evident when in fact they sin and HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself gives them the ultimate punishments. And therefore the tribes stood atop the mountain. Standing on top of a mountain suggests a favored position. They are favored by Hashem for good and bad, and that in and of itself is worthy of Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai's exclamation, Ashreichem Yisrael, because it shows how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually cares for Am Yisrael. And therefore, it wasn't only the tribes who stood atop Har Grizim for the bracha, but also the tribes who are to affirm the curses. Reuven, Gad, Asher, Zvulun, Dan, and Naphtali on Har Eval. So we are fortunate that HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we have a direct relationship, an intimate relationship, even if at times he, as a loving parent, has to correct our behavior, all with the hope that we will mend our ways as we approach Chodesh Elul, so that in fact, at the end of the day, we are worthy of his brachot. Shabbat Shalom.